Hello! From time to time, after I've created another bulk of videos on any number of paranormal topics, I like to bring it back to the source, or the deeper insight at the heart of all these various branches of boundless consciousness. All the phenomena we're covering here ultimately represent extensions of one truth. Now, there are never-ending ways to describe this truth, but one of them is this. We humans have what can be deemed a superpower, at least compared to the abilities of the rest of the life on this planet. And it's an incredible power we've almost entirely taken for granted. Our superpower is storytelling, and it's a power that has gotten away from us to the point where we have become trapped within our own machinations. Every member of the human race is currently either moving toward or lives almost entirely within an invisible cage, which is manifested from a continuous stream of storytelling, which comes from the outside in a number of ways, but the most important of those narratives we obsessively repeat to ourselves. The end result is our attention is migrating further and further away from reality, away from the present moment as it unfolds, and ever deeper into a world constructed purely on symbolism. So let's take a look at how this cage really works. So get comfortable, smoke 'em if you got 'em, and get ready for today's episode of Conscious Migration. Now, let's say you have an experience that looks something like this. But then someone comes into the scene and they clip out just this part of your experience and they hang this note card in front of it instead. And this goes on and on. Each time you experience something, a new note card is placed before it. Over and over this happens. Eventually, the actual experience falls into obscurity in favor of the symbolism which it represents. Since we have entered this world, we've been trained how to trade the expanse of the world we live in as it unfolds for a limited, summarized version of reality, which can only be decoded by a brain. Pure experience, on the other hand, requires no decoding in and of itself. This process of exchange, reality for metaphor, makes us believe that in order to simply exist, the brain must be decoding and processing and analyzing and problem solving all of the time. But, this isn't a new insight. For over 1,000 years, the Buddhists have been telling us, I may refer to the moon by pointing to it, but don't confuse my pointing finger for the moon itself. So, as we grow older and we acquire a note card for everything in our world, we can create an entire cocoon around us from these symbols, a carefully ordered cage that no longer lets in the light of the outdoors. In fact, since dealing with symbolism is so much safer and organized than the messiness of reality, why go outside at all? Eventually, this cage performs its final and best trick. The cage finally robs us of our very identity, and it convinces us that this carefully organized stack of note cards is what we are. We're no longer a living, breathing awareness which has been observing this collection of symbols, but rather we are this collection of symbols, thoughts, and ideas. In our culture, this is a given. We're taught to believe that we are our thoughts, our opinions, and our ideas. Living in a world of symbolism seems safe at first, far less consequences than what can happen out there. But here's the thing, this stack of ideas can indeed be attacked as well. All someone has to do is point out that your stack of note cards, who you believe you actually are, is just a figment of your imagination. That this neatly organized version of reality you've created actually has nothing to do with actual reality. We hate this. Once we've aligned ourselves with this bundle of symbolism, we want to imagine it is strong and solid and immutable, changeless. So if someone dares suggest that the world out there is something other than what is reflected in our orderly stack of cards, then we will lash out as if our very existence has been threatened. Because from our dark, limited perspective, it has been threatened. If I'm nothing but a very specific pattern of labels, if that's all I am, then changing one of these labels is akin to violence against me. No one had better mess with the careful order I've been placing these cards in, because then that makes me question who and what I really am. I'll no longer be me, or at least what I imagined I was, and I will fight to the death to stop you from trying to change me. Change is death from this perspective. The bulk of the patterns we built out of these cards have been taught to us. These are patterns, the knowledge and the assumptions and beliefs that have been passed down to us through the generations. Parents pass their narrative about how the world works down to their children, just like they pass down their genetic information. And the vast majority of these narratives tell us in one way or another that we are merely small actors, trapped in a storyline that's already been written for us in so many ways. And because it's not a physical cage made of stone or metal, we overlook the incredible impact it has on our life, how it limits and controls every aspect of the mind and body. Before this all sounds hopeless and depressing, don't forget the most important part of this analogy. None of this is real. This isn't what we are. One of my purposes in this short time I have here is to remind whoever will listen that there is absolutely a way to escape. Now, this process of escaping this odd predicament of ours is unusual because in this case, you generally don't bust out of this jail one day and just run off to never return again. Realizing your true identity as unbound, timeless consciousness usually doesn't just engulf you one moment to forever leave you in a perfect state of conscious bliss. Yes, there are stories of such things happening in the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, but this is a cage that you will slowly get better at unlocking each time, and then slowly spend increasingly more time on the other side of the bars, only to return to the cage at the end. Along this journey to enlightenment, you may leap back and forth between the cage of symbolism and pure unbound consciousness a million times before you really see the entire play with crystal clarity. And once you see, for all how you've been actively involved in your own entrapment, then further enlightenment will happen. It's happening right this very moment. You're quietly whispering to yourself about what's going on, what will happen next, what you want to happen next, what happened yesterday, what you wish you could change, and on and on and on. This cage is electrical in nature and must be maintained constantly by your thinking, which in turn is powered by an incredible force of nature. That force is a force we overlook to our immense detriment. That is the power of our attention. When we remove our attention from this thought, it pulls the plug on the entire contraption. This is why meditation works. Meditation is, if nothing else, the process of moving your attention away from your stack of note cards about the world to the world itself, which only exists now. When you are caught up with the past or engaged with the possible future, you are not observing the world. You're caught up in symbolism. Now, please understand, I'm not for a moment suggesting that our capacity for oral and written language, our ability to think in language, our knack for metacognition and logic is somehow evil in and of itself. Our ability to make these labels and put them in a rational order and to communicate has given us incredible power. I mean it when I say storytelling is a superpower. It does not have to be our curse, but we're still very much in an early stage of development on this front. We're still only scratching the surface of what thinking in language and working with language can manifest in this world. Not just its pitfalls, but its greater potential. But we need to learn how to use this power productively. We have to wake up and remember that we're the ones holding the reins of the incredible power of storytelling. Storytelling has shaped this world. Storytelling molds the world around us in ways so radical, most of us aren't ready to accept it just yet. And this narrative is projected over your actual reality in such a convincing manner that you can't tell the difference between reality and the story you're telling about reality. We read a book and we slowly start to become the hero. When the hero's in trouble, our actual blood pumps just a little faster. That's beautiful and scary at the same time. We go online now where we are spending more and more of our time, and we can't tell the difference between the identity we've created in this digital playground and what we actually are. We're a race of storytellers as well as a race of creatures who can lose their identity in the story. Learn how to escape this cage, and all of these problems instantly go away. No more confusion. You can still go online and play around, but now you're not confused any longer. You know who and what you are. This doesn't take the fun out of it, by the way. Rather, it makes our relationship with media even more amazing. It brings a freedom and a creativity to it. So one can escape this cage. One way to escape this cage is to learn how to use the pause button on this constant stream of inner commenting on everything. Again, this pile of symbolism we live in isn't ultimately real, it's an abstraction, an illusion which requires constant input of energy. It takes energy to maintain our illusions of a limited world, our illusions of being weak and small and discontented and depressed. The style of meditations I suggest here are all aimed at stopping all of that interactivity. Cut off the power supply which brings this pile of symbolism to life. As soon as you move your attention away from the noise, the thinking, and over to the present moment, which is always available to you, it instantly falls apart. That's the pause button. This is the ultimate goal of meditations, of what I suggest, to achieve enough practice that you know that you can, at any time you want, hit pause. Simply having that power at your command, even when you aren't actively engaged in a meditation, adds a dimension of freedom to your life that changes everything. It makes everything brighter. You're no longer a slave to, oh God, what's going to happen to me today? Learning how to pause puts the power firmly, squarely, right back into your hands. Okay, that should give you enough to chew on until next time. So thank you all so much for joining me today. Again, please like and subscribe if you're enjoying these talks. It truly costs you nothing, and it really does help this little channel of mine grow. So until next time, peace and love.